Welcome to the Roboticist Chronicles, an ARC Specialties podcast, where we get into the nuts and bolts of robots, automation, and the implications of an evolving machine workforce.
Hello, this is Dan Alford, and you're listening to the Roboticist Chronicles. We're doing this segment out in the shop because I've got a fellow roboticist with me, Gene Rabatin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Dan.
Rabatin.
Rabatin, yeah.
What does that mean? It sounds awfully familiar.
Well, I know it sounds like robot, and for years people would say, oh, your last name sounds like robot. And funny enough, about 10, 15 years ago, I was doing some ancestry genealogy work and found out that I'm Slovak, and I was going to go to Slovakia and meet my cousin Radoslav Rabatin. And I thought, what if the Rabatins are really prominent over there? What if we have castles and, I could live like a queen in Slovakia?
Yeah.
So I started doing all this work, and I find out that Rabatin is actually a derivative, a Hungarian word of a repetitive worker, which is the word robot. And
that's
robot's
where it
a
came
Hungarian
from.
Robot. Is a Hungarian word, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the right place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we go way back.
Yeah.
Way back to ATI is when I think you met.
Yeah,
ATI is the tool changer guys, right?
Correct, yep. I started there in 2003. One of my first business trips was down here, and I traveled with Daryl Pope, who worked for ARC Specialties.
Right, he's retired.
Yep, and we went to see one of your customers up in, is it Woodlands, I think, Texas?
Must have been the Hughes Tool Rock Bit Company.
Yeah. So we went up there, and he was showing me some of the products that you guys had purchased from ATI and how you used them, which was kind of cool. And so I worked for ATI for 15 years. I covered 26 states at one point, so I was covering quite a bit of ground. But
half of the United States.
Yeah.
A little over.
More than half the United States. Yeah. So was there for 15 years. Left there, and I went to a competitive robot company, an orange one, and was a sales director for a few years.
Right, which was one of the robots I happened to be using.
Correct.
So we continued to work together.
Yep. And then I went to the dark side.
Became a competitor.
I went to integration, which was probably the hardest job I've ever had.
Really? I always claim it's a hard job.
It is a hard job. It was the hardest job I had, but the wins were that much bigger wins. When you win a project, that win was so much, it was harder to earn it, so it meant more.
Plus, a single robot cost is dwarfed by system
100%,
cost.
100%. Yeah, I'm not. You got to figure. I was selling tool changers for $1,500. Went to selling robots for $30,000, and then I was selling a $25 million assembly system.
That's a lot of tool changers.
So exactly. So it was a big jump in pricing there. But
you wouldn't be here if that was where you're working.
I'm not there anymore. Oh, I recently joined earlier this year Yaskawa Motoman, and my new role is partner development. Funny enough, I ran into another person who's been in our industry for 40, 50 years. I don't know if you know a fellow named John Berg. I don't know. Yeah, so he's been around. He's an Engelberger award winner, and I ran into him at IMTS last year, and he says to me, "So Gene, you've kind of sold some component parts, and then you sold the robots, and then you sold the systems. Like, what's your favoriteest thing that you've done? What was your favorite part?" I'm like, well, everything kind of has its pros and cons, as hard as it was for integration, the win, that was that much bigger of a win. And I said, but if I have to pick anything, I really miss working with the integrators. I said, I made friends with all the integrators when I was with ATI and KUKA, and I really miss having that friendship with the integrators. And it wasn't 4 weeks later where I got contacted by Yaskawa, and they says, hey, we have this opportunity. I'm like, that's my dream job. So that's kind of what I'm doing, working with the integrator and trying to figure out who the right partners would be, a good fit for our company and your company. So it's been a great fit for me.
And it made sense to me because Motoman, y'all been arc welding
Correct.
Since the beginning, right?
Absolutely. That's how the company was started. Back in the 80s, we were Yaskawa drives, partnered with Hobart.
And which I use also in some of my dedicated machines.
Yeah, you mentioned you use quite a bit of Yaskawa drives. Created a robot company in the Dayton, Ohio area.
What year was that? Or what?
Late 80s.
Late 80s.
Don't know the exact year. And then that went on till Hobart got bought by somebody else, probably about 10, 12 years ago.
ITW, I think.
Yep, ITW bought them, and they had to divest their interest in the Yaskawa Motoman, so Yaskawa just took it all over, so now we're just Yaskawa. Still have the Motoman name in there, but our robots now just say Yaskawa. They don't say Motoman anymore.
And where are these robots built?
Most of them are built in Japan.
But you're doing some of them.
We have
in
one
Ohio,
model
right?
we're doing in Ohio. Japan didn't really see the need or the market for the big, heavy duty, heavy kilogram robot, and we saw a market here, so we're building them there in Dayton. we've just added on. Actually, our building's under construction right now. We're adding 200,000 square feet, and that should be done by spring. I think they were trying to get the roof on before it starts snowing.
I applaud, because U.S. is where we invented industrial robots.
Correct.
Engelberger, you mentioned the name.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
He's passed away, but that's the award that that roboticists strive for. And then we lost most of that industry. And I'm glad to hear y'all are building robots here.
Yep, I'm trying.
Mm-hmm. What else about Motoman? Anything else on that one?
I can't think of anything off the top.
So
of my
they
head.
mostly resistance or arc welding?
Resistance.
Okay.
Yeah. You guys are experts in welding, all things welding, and I find it odd that that Motoman and ARC have never really worked together. And so I'm hoping we could find that right project where we, can learn how to work with each other on the robot side and what you do, and hopefully both be impressed with each other.
Oh yeah, and that's the plan. And the way we're going to learn how your robots, your strengths and weaknesses, we're going to run one right here in production.
Good.
We're going to build robots using robots, so they're starting to reproduce.
I think we've been warned about that, and here you are.
Yeah, I am a member of A3 because of you.
Yep.
Here's your chance to pitch A3, which when you talked me into it was called RIA.
Yep. So I'm part of the membership committee, so I'm always trying to find people like you who aren't members to join. And I mean, there's several benefits from it, but the big one is, being able to participate and automate. And, we have the safety standards.
Automate is a show that you
Automate
host
is a
every
big trade
year.
show. Yep, it's going to be
Where was it
every
last year?
It was in Detroit this past year. It's going to Chicago next spring. It was every other year, but now it's going to be every year. There's different classes and different events that A3 hosts, and as a member you get to go to those either reduced cost or for free. And I think the biggest thing is the certified robot.
That's what I'm in it for.
Yeah. So, it's kind of funny when I was looking at the website to see how many certified integrators there are.
38.
38 and
in America.
And there's one company that's listed 8 times because it's one big company and they have several divisions. And I'm like, so that's really, now we're down to 30 companies in the U.S. who are certified integrators. Certified integrator, I mean, you could explain what you had to go through to do that, but it's kind of making sure that you are folling the safety guidelines. That
right,
the
you have
RIA
to do a safety audit. And it's not that hard. It's interesting.
Everybody that has said that is on it has said, we were really nervous about this, and we did it, and was like, oh, well, this is what we do every time anyway.
Well, sometimes you don't, sometimes you won't, and this just encourages you to do it right every time.
Yeah.
But, when my guys took the programming test, they were all anxious. They all made 100s.
Yeah.
They just recertified not long ago.
Overachievers.
Well, they didn't make 100 this time. The new guy we had didn't, but it was close enough.
Yeah.
I'm proud of them. But there is no real obstacle, is what I'm saying, for any integrator. I'm telling my competition now to join and become a certified integrator, because the biggest problem in robotics in America are bad integrators.
Yeah, I agree. And when we talk to people in the end users, right? Maybe if you visit a trade show, that's the first thing we tell them. You look at A3's website. Look for the certified integrators. Those are the people that know how to do it all.
But how many integrators do you estimate in America? There's 30 certified.
Oh, got to be hundreds.
Hundreds, literally.
Hundreds, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's 10%.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If that, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm pushing all the time. I really want this to become a standard requirement.
Yeah.
And if it was a big hurdle, it wouldn't be fair to the little guys, but it's not.
And the cost of joining A3 is not that expensive. A couple hundred. Depending on the level, there's different levels of pricing. But if you're a little guy that has a couple employees, it's very manageable for you to do for a yearly fee.
And it's a huge credibility to have that.
Absolutely.
There. So okay. Well, that is a reason. And the other thing I like about A3, which was Robotics Industrial Association, now it's the Association for the Advancement of Automation.
Correct.
Is you guys, or I guess we, write the specs that OSHA adopts for robotics.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, our trade organization writes that, and then that becomes a standard.
That's how credible it is.
Yeah.
And so, if you want to get involved in that, I'm sure there's places for people to do that. Are you still on a committee?
I'm still on a membership committee, so reach out to me and I'll hook you up.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So it's kind of unusual for me to be working with a female in this industry.
Yeah, we're kind of a rare breed. In this industry. Yeah, I've always been. I've always been, my dad, I think, had a hard time recognizing that I was a girl. I mean, when I was about 9 years old, I had to sit at the kitchen table at dinner and learn the firing order of a big block Chevrolet. That was very important for some reason.
That is important. You get the plug wires crossed, it won't run.
Exactly. So just stuff like that. We were into drag racing when I was young, so we would be out there. He would give me some wrenches and torque some things and take things apart and explain to me how they worked and why they worked.
It was good for you.
It was, and I knew. I mean, he would bring out the Summit Racing catalog, and we'd be sitting there at dinner, and he'd turn the page. What's that? I'm like, timing chain. What's that? Transmission. What's that? Carburetor. So we would go through these little drills and have fun. But I've always been interested in, I guess, industry. And when I was out of high school, I started working for a steel company, a cold-rolled steel company. So I kind of learned the steel background. Moved to North Carolina, was selling structural steel, and then ATI was based in North Carolina. And they had an ad for an outside salesperson to, sell these robotic end effectors. And I
took over half the country.
Well, I didn't, I had zero of the qualifications they were asking. And I wrote out a resume. I remember walking out to the mailbox. I'm like, okay, it's in your hands, God, because I don't see the chance of this. And then I got a call 3 days later and got the job. And it was a weird industry for me to understand and kind of get the hang of it. But once I got the hang of it, it wasn't even like work anymore. I mean, it was just, it just ran like a well-oiled machine. I knew my customers, knew where I had to be. I don't know. It's a fun industry, and I've been asked a couple times about women not being in the industry, and it's almost insinuated that men don't let the women in the industry, and it's just the opposite. It's just that women aren't interested in this industry, and it's changing now with the STEM type of programs, right?
Right.
And the robot programs, but for the most part, your girls go into nursing and as teachers and stuff like that. Schools don't encourage that,
I mentored an all-girls robot team in high school for 5 years, and I can tell you they got a big kick out of creating things.
Yeah,
it's a creative outlet and using tools, and we had a great time.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, the school headmistress showed me the graph where the number of girls that went into engineering continued to increase as long as
awesome.
All you got to do is expose people to this because it's fun.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I love my job. Apparently you do. You've been doing it
absolutely
the whole
over
career.
20 years. Yeah, I love it. I do. I've seen so many neat things. I mean, years ago, I remember when I would go to visit different customers, I would check in, right, on Facebook or LinkedIn. And I remember so many of the guys I went to high school with said, you are the coolest chick ever. You've been to SpaceX. You've been to Tesla. You've been, and so it's like, yeah, they're customers. Like, what's the big deal? That's what I do.
Oh, that's the fun part for me.
Yeah.
And then by going from one industry to another, you can take an idea from one industry, take it to another, it makes you look smart.
It makes you look smart. Yeah.
Okay, so has it been an advantage, disadvantage, or neutral?
I think it's probably been an advantage just because, one of my very first sales calls was to a different robot company. And the president of that robot company knew I was coming to town and told their engineers and the salespeople, hey, take Jean out to dinner and introduce yourselves on. So we went to dinner, and the one gentleman at dinner said, I'm going to remember what you sell forever. And I'm like, you are? And he goes, yeah, because you're the only girl that's come to our office in like 6 years. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'll take it. I'm something different. I'm not the normal sales guy with a distributor's list of parts that I'm selling. I'm something different. So I think it's been an advantage. I think the funniest thing that's happened is more than 5 times I went to see customers. And you're making these appointments, right, with emails typically.
Yeah, right.
Some say appointments, hey, I'm going to come visit you. I'm going to be in the area, blah, blah, blah. Sign Jean Rabatin.
Oh, nobody knows who you are.
So I'd get there and they'd be like, oh, Jean Rabatin, not Jean the Rabatin. I'm like, nope, I'm a Slovak girl, not a French guy. So that was the only mix-up. And that's happened numerous times.
Huh.
Yeah, kind of funny.
But you get past it.
I don't get offended, yeah. Kind of laugh about it, it's kind of funny.
So you've been doing this forever. Reminisce, tell me a cool job, or what have you done that you're really proud of or thought was neat, or?
Let's see, what I'm really proud of is a job that I did when I was at the integrator, and that was a system that was spitting out an electrical circuit breaker every 6 seconds.
Yeah, these quantities amaze me sometimes.
Just robots
so that's
running it.
Assembling it, building it, what?
Assembling it and testing it, and all in 6 seconds. So it was a pretty remarkable machine. It's the first one I ever did from beginning to end, right? Our company concepted it, sold it, and then made it happen.
6 seconds is usually a one single move, not one single part.
So it was a lot of robots, a lot of conveyor, a lot of pieces and parts of that. So it was an awesome system. But probably the most unique application I ever saw was one of the ones I did early on with my tool changer days.
Yeah.
I went to California and visited the Clorox Corporation. They have an R&D facility out there.
I know a young engineer out there.
And they were using our tool changers. They put robots on like a track, and on each side of the track are probably 10, 15 toilets. And they were doing really horrible things to these toilets to test their Clorox toilet products. And rather than have a scientist who's out there doing all the testing, they put a robot with a scrubby on the end, and they would dock it and pick up a different tool and do some, maybe pull some water out with a syringe of some sort with a different, so it was cool. And I thought, there's a market there, maybe, huh? Get a robot that cleans toilets.
Was anybody complaining that the robot stole my toilet cleaning job?
No, never ever heard that. But that is funny you mentioned that, because in these last 3 years, and I'm sure you have
I hear it all the time.
For the first 17 years of me being in this industry, and I would tell people, what do you do, Gene? I'm in the robot industry. Oh, you're one of those people that steal jobs from people. And you have to go through, that's not true,
I clean toilets.
Exactly. Here, for every robot there's 5 people employed because of it, that sort of, talk. Now, when you say, I'm in robots, oh, thank goodness, we can't find people. I mean, that narrative has completely shifted in the last 3 years.
Well, yeah, but I see just the opposite in media, that they're complaining about robots stealing jobs still and threatening to tax them. And I find that ironic, because nobody threatens to tax washing machines, and yet
no one threatens to tax software like Microsoft Excel.
More people, more clerical workers have been put out of work by
exactly by software companies. Yeah. So it's been easier, I think, to say you're part of the robot industry and people not thinking poorly of you now, because you just can't find people.
Well, speaking of integrator failure, what was your worst project? Tell me a bad story, because they're not all happy.
Man, I don't know if I can.
What, you've never struggled?
Well, integration, I think every project is.
Oh, every project's
a struggle.
Absolutely.
That was the wide, the light bulb moment for me, and I'm like, nothing goes smooth with integration. The robot side of selling a robot, that's easy. You just tell me what size you need, what payload, I got you. But putting all those components together to make them all work and do what the customer wants, I think for the most part, a lot of projects end up being successful in the end, right? It's a lot of give and take between the end user and
if you stick with it.
If you stick with it. But I think the worst thing you could do is you have parts that are not repeatable.
Oh yeah, been there, done that.
And
but they tell you they will be.
And so they don't understand that robots are 100% repeatable. And if your parts aren't repeatable, then you're not going to have a system that is just spitting parts out. So that's always a trick with that. But man, I'm trying to think of
no specific example. Oh. But that is what's making robots more useful. In my, when I started out, I was building a whole lot of custom equipment.
Yeah.
We still do.
Yeah.
But as robots gain capability, and you just hit it, now robots can adapt to their environment.
Correct.
All sorts of, we're using vision, 2D laser, 1D laser, 3D laser, all these different sensors. So then when the part changes, we can cope.
Yep. There's some unique applications out there for sure that I can't really think of one that was a horrible.
See, you're just an optimist. You don't remember anything tough.
You're probably right. I want to forget those bad things.
See, I can't. But we always get through it. And I think that's the difference between ARC specialties and
a good
lot
integrator
of
and a bad
integrator.
100% agree. If you just throw your hands up and walk away, then you're a bad integrator.
We don't always make money, but we always succeed.
Yeah, that's good.
But some people, I think they have to make money in order to survive or something like that. So I just did a post the other day that on one way to bankrupt a company is to steal from the cash register, and that is.
I read about your yacht.
Yeah, but I believe that the integrators, they make a little bit of money and they reward themselves right out of business.
Yep, I agree.
That's what I'm saying. You just said that you estimate 300 integrators in America. And how many of them have lasted more than 20 years?
And there's only about a handful.
There's a handful.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And why is that? I mean, can you tell them something? I wish we could fix this problem because it gives the industry a bad name.
I think
Stealing
it's a lot
from
of
the cash register.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we talked about earlier was, becoming a certified integrator and understanding the different protocols that are out there. I think that's a big key to it. Don't overpromise customers either. You can't let you start having customers that start dictating what you're going to do. I had a customer who, we want this machine. It's going to be plastic injection molding. We're going to get those parts come off there, and we want these parts put into a bag or a box. And okay, that's an easy application. We got that. And then it just started. Oh, well, we want this, and we
That's
want
called
that,
mission
and
creep.
we want this, and we want that. And then when you give them a change order, well, this is another 400,000. 400,000, you're ripping us off. Well, you just added $400,000 worth of engineering and equipment that we didn't talk about early on.
You got to stand your ground for everybody's sake.
Absolutely. So that is part of the salesperson, engineering, project manager to keep all that with the original scope, right? And not let it get out of control.
I worked for an integrator that not only went bankrupt, they got indicted. It's good to have negative role models in your life, right?
Yeah.
And I realized that you can not only go bankrupt, but you might go to jail. I was don't worry, I was long gone before this happened, but it just shows you how bad it could be.
Yeah.
And I don't want any part of that. So that was a good negative role model for me. Makes me try even harder, and that's why we keep slogging along, even if it's a part problem, a maintenance problem, a human resource problem. I've been known to fix customers' cranes in order to get the material into the robot. That's the attitude you have to survive in this business.
No, I agree. That's why you get repeat business, right? And repeat business is really what you want. If you have to keep getting a new customers for every application, that's exhausting. But if you get the same customer over and over, that'd be great.
I agree. Yeah, you don't have to prove yourself.
Exactly. Or even if a machine you make, having repeats of that same machine, right? That becomes easy. Your guys on the floor already did it once; they know how to do it again.
So, has it been a good career?
Yes.
Would you tell young Gene to go into this career?
I would. And that's I don't have regrets. Like I think everything that's happened.
You're an optimist.
I am. Everything that's happened has happened for a reason and put me in places where I should have been. I think if I had a regret, it would have been, and again, this is my age and the time I was in high school. I was good in math, but I had nobody pushing me. Maybe you ought to talk about going into engineering, Gene. No one did that.
It wasn't an option. Didn't think about it.
No. So I went into accounting, and funny enough, I was working in the accounting department for a steel company, and I was the credit lady, the lady who would call customers and say, "Where's our money?"
Oh, the mean one.
And I would put people on credit hold, right, if they didn't pay for their material. And the VP of sales came to me one day. He goes, "Can you come in my office, please?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, I've made some customer mad, And he says, "Listen, I went to visit customer A, B, and C." And he goes, "And all three of those customers, they knew who you were." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "They didn't know who their salesperson was, but they knew Jean, the credit lady, and they like her." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "You're in the wrong job." He goes, "You need to be in sales."
Well, thank goodness he recognized that.
100%. And so 6 months later, he had an opportunity for me to go into inside sales, and I took that. And I sent him a letter when I was working as a sales director and said, "Just want to let you know this is where I am today because of what you noticed, 30 years ago." Yeah.
That's something we do here. We call it shadowing. We let high school kids come in, and they have to come talk to me first, and I highlight all the engineers' offices, and they go run around, talk to mechanical, electrical, software, welding, and material scientists.
Kind of understand what they do.
Right, and all of the guys, because they're all guys, I'm afraid. All the guys play a game. They try to talk the kid into going into their field.
Yeah.
And at the end of 3 days, the kid has to come back and tell me
Where he wants to go.
He or she wants to do, and whatever, because you have to want to do it, but they also have to be aware of the options. I had 2 young women show up. One of them ran away screaming and now does wine. No, that's good. Yeah, no, it kept her from wasting time. And the other one's an engineer.
Good.
Both answers are right. But you have to be exposed to this.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, there's nothing in high school that tells you what you should go to college for. It has to, I wish it was easy, for kids to realize, like, I'm good at this class, so therefore I should maybe go in this direction, I graduated with 500 kids, and we had, I think, 2 guidance counselors in our school. Like, how are two guidance counselors going to guide 500 students in a graduating class? You know, it was impossible.
Maybe the guidance counselor should come shadow, because I don't think they're aware of all the options.
Probably not. I mean, like I said, I'm tickled that there's a STEM program, and I hope it keeps going, because I think that's the only way to get women and young girls kind of interested in, you know, options like this. The high school I ended up going to, they actually had some robots when I went to visit them a couple years ago.
All right.
And
Not when you were there, though.
No, and they were going to be certified programmers of a certain robot brand. And you know, I was trying to tell people this, like, you know how much these kids can make coming out of high school?
That's huge, yeah.
I mean, that's huge. They don't have to go to college to just learn how to program. You know, it was great. So that's probably my only regret, that I didn't get some type of engineering background. But I know enough of the lingo, I could lie my way through it.
Yeah. So what do you do on the outside? Are you robots 24/7?
No, I don't do that anymore. I used to. When I worked at ATI, I did it 24/7. Well, I'm a snowbird at my young age, so I live in Pennsylvania part of the year and in Florida the other part of the year. I'll let you guess what part of the year is which.
Yeah.
So we love that Florida lifestyle. We do jet skiing and boating and that sort of thing. In the middle of winter, while everybody else is putting gloves on, I'm boating and jet skiing. Like to do stuff with my church in Florida and in Pennsylvania, read.
But your company's in Ohio.
It is. I work remote. That's the stipulation I've had with my last couple jobs. Here's my lifestyle. I live in Pennsylvania sometimes. I live in Florida part-time. Is that a problem? If it's a problem, then this isn't a good job for me, because I'm not changing that lifestyle. And I joined the Armed Women of America. And
what is that?
It's a gun shooters club for women.
Pistols, rifles,
all the above.
Excellent.
So yeah, you and I went and shot a couple months ago.
Yeah, I think defenselessness is not a virtue.
I agree. It's been fun learning to not be afraid of the weapon, right? Learn how to use it, learn how to clean it, and don't be scared of it. That's my main reason for wanting to join that.
Well, you're living in Florida. That's a gun-friendly state.
It is a gun-friendly state. Yep. They did away with the concealed carry license. Now it's just.
I think they were the first, weren't they, to come up with a concealed carry, if I remember?
I don't know if we were the first, but they did away with the whole licensing part of it now.
Right, but this is way back, I think 80s. They were one of the first, if I recall.
Okay.
Good for them.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you could go back and tell Jean, that's what you would tell her if you went back to little Jean?
Yeah, look at engineering.
Take some more technical classes.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe look at that instead of accounting.
At least you had some math.
I still laugh when I think about that. You've known my personality for 20 years. Can you see me as an accountant? Do I have an accountant personality?
No, but you probably looked around what mommy and daddy do and what they do on TV, and you don't see any other options.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. I think the funny thing is my robot industry career started after my dad passed away. And I remember as being a little girl, he'd come home, he worked at General Motors, and he'd come home and he'd say, these damn robots are going to make me lose my job. And at the time, he was working in the most automated automotive facility in the country. That was at GM in Lordstown, Ohio. And when I started working in the robot industry, I thought, man, thank God he's not around anymore. He'd be an unhappy person if he knew I was in the robot industry. And then I laughed so hard when I found out our last name means robot. I'm like, he didn't have a clue.
What was his job, though?
He was just an assembly guy. He worked in something I could 100% automate.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, now. You know what? His last job was, there was a little plate of where your shock comes up into the trunk.
Yeah.
He would put two pieces of metal in the press, come out, push, get the hands out of the way, press would come down. We would so automate that today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then we would have no food on the table, but whatever.
They'd move on. I always tell people half of America worked on a farm in 1900 and now less than 2%, and nobody complains.
Exactly.
Because now we have bountiful food, more leisure time, and because of those robots in Detroit, cars are affordable.
Exactly.
So
no, you're right.
I have no regrets.
Yeah. No. It's the only way to stay competitive, too.
Absolutely.
We saw after the last couple of years of bringing manufacturing back, and the only way we can stay competitive is to automate.
Indeed, indeed. Because I tell people, our lifestyle here in the States is much better than in the countries that we're competing with.
Absolutely.
And so the only way that, if you're going to live in a global economy, the only way to do that is you have to be equally more efficient.
Yes.
And we can help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that was fun.
It was fun.
Okay, what do we miss? You want to hit on anything?
I don't know. I don't think I missed anything. I mean, talked about all the places I've been, all the things I've done. Any place you want to talk about? Any customers you want to talk about that's been fun? Or
no, we're going to head off into the future and try to find the thing I like about the Motoman is y'all are very good at MIG welding. You're very good at adaptive control, which means you can find the joint quickly and efficiently. Yep. And not only that, but you can do it in a way that an operator / programmer can cope with. And I think that adaptive control is what is necessary for us to tackle all those jobs that I've had to pass up in the past.
Good. So. No, I'm excited to work with you again. Like I said, we've had a good relationship for many years. It's good to finally get back together and work together.
All right, let's go find a job.
Let's do it.
Thanks for coming on. You got to come back.
I definitely will. Thank you.